G'day City Skylines fans, well we're back today with another City Skylines 2 feature highlight. We've got the Traffic AI feature highlight and the associated dev diary which we're going to go through. I'm very excited about this. I don't know about you, but the Traffic AI has been one of the things that I really am kind of been scratching my head about in terms of what's going to be different between what we have just now and this new game obviously, and I don't think we're going to be disappointed from what I've seen so far. So let's dive straight in. So probably the first thing to grab my attention with this dev diary was the conversation about pathfinding. So this little blurb here talks about, obviously in the current game, pathfinding is proximity based, and they give an example of, say, a fire truck responding to a fire. Obviously the game would then identify where in your city the fire is and the closest fire station to that, send out a fire truck from there, and if that fire truck got stuck in traffic because you've got traffic jams in your city, then in all likelihood it would just keep sitting there and the building would probably burn to the ground, and also the fire would spread. But what's exciting reading through this is in City Skylines 2, agents choose a route based on pathfinding cost. So they talk about this pathfinding cost, and this is all new. And then they go into that pathfinding cost in more detail, saying that there's 4 key aspects to that: time, comfort, money, and behavior. So let's look at each one, because I mean this is blowing my mind. It's way more complex than even I thought would be delivered as part of City Skylines 2, so I'm excited by this. So time we are aware of in the game at the moment, and that's, you know, they're saying that's a factor when an agent is calculating a path. So if there's 2 roads, say between location A and location B, if one of those roads has, you know, is a smaller road and has a 30-mile speed limit, the other road is a highway road, has a 70-mile-an-hour limit, then clearly, you know, if time is of importance to that agent, then they're going to choose the path that takes them on that faster road. So that's a no-brainer. That makes sense to me. The next one is comfort. So this is, yeah, very new. This is not something that clearly that we have right now. So comfort being an important factor in pathfinding includes planning the route to be as smooth as possible. So by that, what they're saying is any sort of avoiding any unnecessary turns at intersections, finding a suitable parking spot or a public transport stop to get off at. And then they say comfort is calculated directly to the pathfinding cost, with each option adding to the overall cost. So a little bit further, we'll get onto it in a second as we get into more detail with this. It's looking like for those sims where comfort is an important factor, then not being stuck in a traffic jam makes the difference for them. So if there's a route that is heavily congested, then that's a route that they're going to avoid. I find that really intriguing. We'll go into that in more detail though. Let's keep going. So money. And money comes into pathfinding choices in the form of fuel usage and potential parking fees. So again, my ears pricked up when I heard this. So the parking fee one, again, that makes sense to me, no brainer whatsoever. If you've got parking lot A, which is in the center of the city and is say $30 an hour, versus a car park on the edge of the downtown, say, that was maybe $5 an hour and you could change to a bus that would take you the rest of the way, that makes sense to me. Pretty straightforward, I get it. Then fuel usage, and this is what I was not expecting. So they're saying that in the case of delivery vehicles, the cost of resources they transport increases the further away they're delivered. So selling resources and goods locally is more cost efficient for the companies, as the delivery costs are lower than hauling that cargo further distances in your city or to an outside connection. Wow, I mean that is so much more complex than I had even appreciated that would be possible, I guess. I mean, obviously anything's possible, but yeah, it's just having that multi-layer to it as well, and will make us really consider where we put our port, how far away maybe our industry is from commercial. Really think about that layered mixed zoning element, which is exciting. Then we get on to behavior. So this talks about their willingness to make dangerous decisions in traffic. So things like pulling a U-turn in front of oncoming traffic where you maybe weren't supposed to, or making dangerous decisions in terms of, when to go through a roundabout quicker than normal, things like that, which again is quite interesting. And what they say is dangerous decisions in traffic to cut pathfinding costs. So each of these aspects has a cost element, not just monetary, but a value obviously, and then those values are I assume added together to calculate that overall cost in determining the route that the agent takes, or whether that's a car or a sim or what have you. Yeah, intriguing. This is not what I expected. It's really, if they can pull this off in a really smooth and meaningful way, my mind is blown. Then they go on to address other elements of pathfinding, so a traveler's age group. So they talk about teens. Obviously the most important factor to a teen would be money, so they'll be seeking out cheaper options of traveling or transportation compared to maybe adults, which value time, so the quickest route is more valuable to them. And then seniors, where a high comfort level is more preferred. So again, like I said earlier, they don't want to sit in a traffic jam. That's not comfortable for them, so that would not be a route that they would tend to choose. And that's really cool, having that layered effect and having each one of those aspects meaning something more to a different age group of a sim. Just really granular level. I mean, this is almost sounds a little bit overwhelming at first. I think it's going to take us all a little while, to get our heads around that as we play the game, but super exciting. Then we come on to lane usage, and honestly, I can hear everybody cheering in the background when I started to read through this and look at the video around lane usage. So this time around, we're seeing what we've always wanted to see, the optimization of road usage. So using all the lanes. If it's a 3-lane road, what the traffic will do is, as it approaches that intersection, it'll identify if one lane's empty in the direction they're going and use that lane so that all the lanes evenly fill out, or more evenly fill out, as the traffic backs up at that intersection before, say, the lights change or whatever. Then they take it a step further and they say vehicles can overtake slower vehicles when the simulation notices that the other lanes are less used. That blows my mind. I mean, for the vehicle to calculate, okay, I can overtake and use that lane, get around this vehicle going slower and more evenly use those lanes, that is unbelievable to me. I mean, I don't think I've seen a game, and correct me if I'm wrong, drop a comment below. I don't think I've seen a game that I've certainly played so far that has that level of intelligence, to be able to work that out. And certainly in City Skylines 1, that's not the case. As we all know, we get highway traffic jams with just one lane, with the other 2 or 3 empty, which is incredibly annoying but entertaining for us all. But yeah, this is next level stuff. And then they talk about a vehicle switching lanes to avoid completely blocked lanes, traffic jams, an accident, so going around that or using another route. This is what traffic AI should be. If you were sitting down with a blank canvas, these are the things that I would want to see. Then we come on to a little bit more detail about traffic simulation, agents and performance. And this is another really exciting discovery from this dev diary. So the fact that, unlike City Skylines 1, obviously this traffic AI is far more complex in the new game, and the fact that when a vehicle leaves on its journey, that route is not hard-coded. So if it's deciding to travel from A to B, it has something to deliver from building A to building B, sets off on its journey, and nothing can make it deviate unless you delete a road. What they're saying here is that pathfinding calculations are more numerous, they're more in depth, and are made along that journey. So no matter what's happening on that journey from building A to building B, decisions and changes can be made along that path depending on what's happening. If there's traffic jams, if there's an accident which keeps cropping up. So I think this is going to be, you know, a real thing for us to manage in the new game. That's exciting. It just makes it so much closer to real life. Another key thing to pick out of this section as well is pathfinding and simulation, among other calculations, take advantage of all the available processing power of the multi-core CPU. And that's something for me personally that I've really wished for as part of this game, that they would leverage modern hardware, they'd use modern multi-core CPUs to their advantage, and GPUs really lean on that processing power that we have available to us today compared to when City Skylines 1 was released. So that is excellent. And you know, I think I'd go one step further, and I know that one of the things that's possibly annoyed people was when we discovered that the map is going to be somewhat smaller than is available in City Skylines 1. This really just drives the reason behind that home for me, because if you have an enormous city, you know, say, I don't know, just for argument's sake, a population of 500,000, for example, you know, the amount of calculations that would be going on as that city goes about its day, you know, not just Sims, but cars and everything we've heard in this dev diary so far, that is a lot of that's tens of thousands of calculations every second. So yeah, to me that kind of makes sense. We're going to have a really multi-layered and in-depth simulation that we just don't have now, and that possibly is the trade-off for it. Then they go on to talk about roundabout behavior, and we saw obviously last week how roundabouts are built and how quick and easy it is just to drop one in, 4 different sizes, which is brilliant, especially for me. Love a good roundabout. But they go on then to talk about how this is much more like real life, how cars will come up to that roundabout, and for those cars that are taking more of a risk as part of their pathfinding will maybe go into that roundabout, potentially causing a car accident faster or less cautious than maybe other cars. It's more like what we would see maybe in real life. And even for those of us who play modded, so I would currently use something like Traffic Manager President Edition mod, and I would use the clear traffic function to select on a road or on a roundabout to keep through traffic going. You know how sometimes you build an intersection and you know cars won't fill up that intersection as they're waiting either side, and you can just toggle that option and they go straight through, which is really handy. So clearly as part of this game that's no longer required. So again, looking at some of these mods that we have and that the community is using and trying to fold that into gameplay, which really excites me. And then they go into more detail about traffic accidents, so talking about how vehicles lose control and crash into traffic or buildings, which is not what I expected either, and obviously how the likelihood of that accident happening is calculated, so it's calculated per road segment. We know from last week that we have road maintenance, and as part of their increased role in City Skylines 2, it's ensuring that roads are maintained and don't degrade and therefore are safer. But what we're learning today as well is that there's a lot of other factors that play a role in a traffic accident. And again, I was somewhat surprised and shocked to see how lifelike that is in terms of not just road conditions or the maintenance of that road, lighting conditions play a role, weather plays a role, and disasters. So possibly natural disasters, maybe like an earthquake or something like that. So it's not just about keeping the road maintained as part of a road maintenance building and having those dotted around the city, but it's also about whether a street is well lit or not that can have an impact in that. And probably there's going to be incidents where we have no control over it. Even though we've done our best to avoid it, an accident happens. And it'll be exciting to see what role that plays as we play the game in City Skylines 2, and what is turning out to be a very different game from City Skylines 1. You know, the onus is really on us in terms of getting down and managing all these elements. And what I also like as well is that once an accident happens, that vehicles in terms of their pathfinding can get fed up do a U-turn away from an accident or avoid that until the accident is cleared up, or if there's a serious injury, obviously then police or fire or ambulance if someone's hurt gets involved. Again, just this level of depth and dynamic that we haven't seen. And then they come into parking. Obviously parking was released recently for City Skylines 1 in terms of an asset that we can put down, but they're taking it to a new level in City Skylines 2. It's one of the 4 main aspects of pathfinding, so it's key to how an agent decides what route they'll take, but on top of that we have that ability to change the cost of car parking, and therefore depending on which sim is traveling, if it's teens as we heard before and they're conscious about money, then that's going to be a real issue for them in terms of deciding which car park to use or which route to take, and just adding another level to the game. The other key thing I noticed when looking at this section of the dev diary was they say parking lots come in multiple sizes along with multi-story and underground parking structures. Now that is cool as well. I know we have underground car parking assets on the workshop, but that's an asset, you know, we'd have to download from the workshop. So the fact that straight out of the gate we've got multi-story, normal car parks, underground car parking structures, and the fact we can set pricing for them all, gotta be happy with that. And then we come on to info views. So we have a lot more information at our fingertips this time to really interrogate traffic in new ways. The first being traffic overview. So as part of that we have traffic flow, something we're used to seeing in City Skylines 1 just now, and that's to do with obviously how smoothly the traffic's flowing around the city and any points at which it's backing up or not flowing properly, and would be alerted to that based on the different colours sliding from red to green. But in City Skylines 2 we also get something called traffic volume, which is showing us how many vehicles travel on the road network at different times of the day. So they're not only confirming now that we'll have rush hours and that time of day matters, in the morning and the evening potentially being way more busier than the middle of the day and the middle of the night, but adding an extra element to help us interrogate how to fix that, whether it's upgrading roads, maybe I need to add mass transit in some way, but really helping us interrogate what we're seeing rather than just a very one-dimensional, that road is busy. We've also got a new info view called Road Overview, which gives us more in-depth information into a specific road, and this will help us very precisely make decisions on what we need to do with a road. So whether we need to keep an eye on it as the city grows and expand it or upgrade it into more lanes, easing traffic congestion that way, or whether we need a road maintenance building to send vehicles out and keep the road in a good condition, free of snow in the winter and just safe all round. So I think with those new tools it'll really help us dig down into why a road is busy. Then we come on to service vehicles, and I thought, okay, well this is just going to be like we have now. You know, we have a fire in a building, it sends out the fire truck closest to that and away you go. But what I was surprised to see here was that the behavior can change. So if a police car is doing patrol duties and decreasing crime as it's traveling around, and an emergency happens like a traffic accident, they can be diverted from their task and go to that traffic accident. What also blew my brain as well was the fact they mentioned robbery. So if an emergency such as a robbery or traffic accident, so again confirming as part of our gameplay that places can be robbed. So if we don't have good police coverage at the moment, our police cars travel around, and if they identify a criminal, they stop, pick that criminal up and take them back to the police station where there's a jail. But now it's more dynamic, so they can drive around keeping the streets safe but also jump into an emergency where required. I can't wait to see how this is going to work. It does puzzle me a little bit in terms of if, for example, my city has a few more accidents than your city for whatever reason, does that mean that the patrol duties will decrease because they're constantly going to something else and therefore crime increases? So do I need more police stations, or how do I kind of deal with that, I guess? So it'll be interesting to see how this transpires. I think we need to get hold of the game and play a bit before we can really work that out. I can't wait to see how that works. And might I add, the fact that cars can get out of an emergency vehicle's way by switching lanes or emergency vehicles doing U-turns. Wow, just wow. And the last section is traffic between other cities. So it talks about the fact that traffic going from one side of the map to the other doesn't contribute to our city's economy, but does contribute to the overall traffic flow. So quite similar, I guess, to what we see now in City Skylines 1. You know, cars are traveling from one side to the other, and if we branch off that highway that they're traveling on or create on-ramps through our city expansion, we can end up impacting that traffic flow where it grinds to a halt or is stuck in a traffic jam. So nothing really new there, I guess, no surprises, but I do like that we can create those outside connections as well. That's important. I want to be able to use a map that's say got one connection on one side, one connection on the other. If I can create a third or a fourth, if I feel that's appropriate, then I like to have that level of control. And there we have it. Feature highlight number 2, Traffic AI. And I don't know about you, but there was a lot in there that I wasn't expecting that I'm getting really, really excited about. I will say this though, I hope it's implemented correctly, because the only thing that worries me about all this new pathfinding AI is if it's not properly balanced, this could be a real headache. It could be really annoying, you know, if I'm constantly getting traffic accidents, even though I believe I've got everything I need to have smooth and non-accident prone roads, or the impact of fuel usage and how resources are shipped around the city. Lane usage is another one that could go horribly wrong. So I don't want to put a dampener on this because I really am excited, don't get me wrong, but part of me does need to see this in game day one to really get a feel for it. Because while I love that we have all these different layers of complexity now, which I think is superb, as long as it doesn't overcomplicate it, that's the key thing here. But let's wait and see. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.